Welcome back to the workbench. Today I'm taking a look at the Zvezda M3A1 Stuart Light Tank in 1:100 scale. Join me in this video as I take a look inside the box and build this tiny tank kit. Hi, I'm Matt and you're watching Model Minutes. Before I start the video, a massive thank you to my patrons. So today I'm building this tiny little tank kit from Zvezda. I thought about doing an unboxing video for this kit, but because there isn't much of a kit to unbox, I thought that was a bit pointless. On the front of the box is a dramatic image of the M3 Stuart printed in full colour. Top right corner of the box, it indicates that this kit will snap together and that glue is not required. This side of the box features a few more examples of other kits that you could purchase as part of the range. The opposite side features multilingual information, particularly the contact address for Zvezda, and also an indication that this is not suitable for those under 3 years old. The rear of the box features an exploded diagram of the tank, indicating how it is to be constructed. It also explains that the game card can be downloaded online. It's worth noting that although the kit doesn't need glue, there are a few words here that say the kit is easy to glue together, so it's up to you whether you choose to or not. So without further ado, let's take a look inside the box. And that's it. All you get is one sand-coloured sprue. No decals, no extra information sheets, just the plastic parts. The 11 parts are incredibly well moulded, with no flash or imperfections being visible. There was a surprising amount of detail on the surface too, which I didn't expect from such a tiny kit. I particularly like that the wheels and tracks are one part, as I feel that having them as separate pieces, or heaven forbid rubber band tracks, in such a small scale would simply cause headaches. Because the instructions are somewhat vague on this model, I decided to crack straight on with the assembly. You can give the parts a wash in warm, soapy water to help clean them up and give a good surface for paints and glues to stick to, but I didn't find this step mentioned on the box, so chose to omit it and see how well the model would build up. All of the parts were cut from the sprue using a sharp knife, and any burrs or rough areas were sanded with a nail file. Throughout this build I've chosen to cement the kit together with Tamiya extra thin cement. The two halves of the hull were joined together, which was then joined by the rear access hatch. The turret comes in 4 parts and can be a little fiddly to get together, but once it's all snapped in place, cement can be run around the seams to help seal it all together. I decided not to cement the turret in place so that it could be turned into different positions. I'm also choosing not to add the tracks as it will be easier to paint these before cementing them to the model. Humbrol 117 US light green acrylic matte paint was thinned with Tamiya acrylic thinners. This was then applied to the entire model. A number of coats would be required to get a good even finish. I used a medium-sized brush to get quick coverage, whilst also working the paints into the fine details. I decided that I would like a little base to display my tank on, so I positioned the hull of the tank on a piece of card and marked out a shape that I liked the look of. This was then cut out using scissors. I'm using a light brown acrylic paint here to cover the white base and give the impression of mud. I then used a slightly darker brown, in this case Humbrol 26, to depict the tracks that the tank was driving along. I'd picked up some static grass in a local model shop and decided that I would use this product on my base. White PVA glue was added to the base, taking care to avoid the too darker areas. A paintbrush was then used to spread it out and ensure good coverage. Static grass was then sprinkled over the base and pressed into place. The glue will dry clear and won't be noticeable. Excess grass was then tapped off the base and replaced in the bag for future use. I haven't got a static applicator, so instead decided to generate a static charge on this plastic knife. I then hovered it above the grass, causing it to stand on end. This method worked reasonably okay for such a small display base, but for larger areas I should really look at investing in a proper applicator. With the paint on the tank now dry, the tracks were cemented to their correct size. Humbrol 53 gunmetal grey acrylic paint was then used to highlight the tracks, machine guns, and other small details such as tools. I took care here to make sure that I didn't accidentally place the paint in the wrong areas. Next, Humbrol 11 Silver was dry brushed over the surface of the tank to highlight some of the raised details and give a metallic effect. Humbrol 26 Matte Khaki Acrylic was then brushed over the lower hull of the tank to give the impression of accumulated mud and grime, whilst the tank goes across country. Having looked at some images online of the Stuart tank, I noticed that an aerial would usually be present on the rear of the tank. Having identified the correct location, I removed a little paint from that area with a sharp knife. I then cut a piece of stretched sprue that I had left over from a previous project to about the right length, and cemented it into place. Humbrol 53 Gunmetal Grey was then used to paint this part and help blend it into the model. I do think at this scale it looks quite thick, so in the future I may replace this part with a thinner piece of sprue. Humbrol 60 Matte Scarlet Acrylic was used to highlight the two lights at the rear of the tank, which I did using a fine brush. It's at this point that the tank is complete. Because the model comes from the Art of Tactics game range, a little marker flag is also included. I decided to paint this flag in Humbrol 85 Satin Black Acrylic. In order to personalise my model and make it stand out a little, I decided to use some leftover decals from my Airfix Sherman tank kit. I cut the star and stripe transfer to the correct size, soaked it in warm water and then applied it to the marker flag. I used Humbrol decal fix to help soften it into the surface. When the decal has cured, a coat of satin varnish will help seal it. The marker flag can then be pushed into the base of the model, and here's the finished kit. I think this is a fantastic little kit, and for retailing for less than £4 in the UK, it won't exactly break the bank. It only took a couple of hours in an evening to build to a reasonable standard, including the extra little display base I chose to do. I think that it is let down by not having any decals or painting instructions, but that is something I can live with. The only other thing is that at 1 to 100 scale it doesn't really fit with anything else I have in my modelling collection. Perhaps I'll have to get some more of these tank kits so that I can make a bigger display. This would be a good introduction to modelling, seeing as the tooling dates from 2015, so it is up to the modern standards with detail, mould quality and fit. Speaking of the fit, being a snap together kit makes this so much easier to assemble, and it actually goes together really well. Some little tweaks or additions I might make in the future could include giving it a dark acrylic wash to help bring out more of the details, and also build upon the display base, perhaps turning it into a diorama. So in conclusion, this is a great little kit which retails at a reasonable price and features good mould and fit qualities. It is let down by the lack of painting instructions and decals, but generally I'm pretty impressed with my 1 to 100 scale M3 Stuart Light Tank from Zvezda. As always, let me know what you think of my build, techniques and finished model in the comments below, and don't forget that you can post suggestions for future builds and videos too. All that's left to say is thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the workbench again next time.